Namaste, everyone. I'm here reporting to you from imperfect circumstances, but I'm very happy to be here doing this video. It has been a time, but I wanted to get on here today to speak to you about a mantra sadhana that I did about 2 years ago. And I have done quite a few since then, and I think it's always really good to hear the perspective of someone who did it, how they did it, why they did it, and after a suitable amount of time has passed, really their own reflection of it. So it's my hope that this is something that's helpful for you. This is something that will bring benefit to your life, and this is something that can start a conversation. So I'll be speaking to you today about a Ganesha Mantra Sadhana I did between the years of 2020 and it ended in 2021. So in a previous video, I shared about my experience doing the mantra Aham Prema and what mantra sadhanas are. The short and sweet of it is that a mantra sadhana is a form of penance that someone can undertake in order to understand a particular concept, perhaps develop a relationship with a particular deity, or invoke a particular blessing. You can do them with a variety of intentions. I personally think that they only work when you have positive intentions and when you have intentions that don't take away from anyone else and don't seek to harm anyone else. Normally with mantra sadhanas, there's a specific number of repetitions of something you have to do. With mantras, in order to obtain mantra siddhi, you have to repeat a mantra for, I always get this number wrong, 125,000 repetitions. So what was the context for me taking on this mantra sadhana? Basically in 2020, before the pandemic took over our lives, I was experiencing a time of confusion, experiencing a time of, just gonna get my tea here, questioning, and for no other reason than I can, for no other clear reason than I can think of right now, I genuinely felt that I needed to do something serious. I needed to do something fixed. And I was intimidated by the idea of taking on a mantra sadhana. I didn't think I knew enough about it. I didn't think that I had the time. I was really afraid if I wasn't able to do it. But at the same time, it was almost like a pressure from outside myself. And at the same time, I was studying Vedic astrology in depth, and many of you who watch my videos, many of you do have a lot of experience with Vedic astrology. So for those of you that don't, basically in that system, different karma plays out in different cycles, and different planets or grahas will kind of rule your life for a certain period. And you know, just as in any life really, you have periods where things are very effortless, easy, periods of intense hard work, periods where things fall apart, and periods where things come together. Every life has this. It's just we're never really able to predict when those periods are going to be. In Vedic astrology, the planet Ketu, and Ketu is not really a planet, it's a mathematical point, but it is the south node of the moon. It's a 7-year cycle, and it's a cycle of renunciation, it's a cycle of loss, it's a cycle of change, and it's not easy. That's probably the simplest way to put it. I won't get too much into my experience in this video because that's not the topic, but it really does bring you down to the bedrock of your life. And at least for me, I felt that I was questioning a lot of things. I had to say goodbye to a lot of things, say goodbye to a lot of people. It wasn't easy, and it was very intense. It was the best way I can describe it is I really felt that I was living with a very intense roommate. This really, it felt like a presence in my life. So going through that, going through the Ketu Dasha, I decided to invoke the presence of Lord Ganesha. Lord Ganesha has a very special relationship with Ketu, and in my readings I discovered that for those of you that might know, the iconography of Ketu is that he is a torso. Sorry, not a torso. He's a decapitated body. And I mean, not to be dramatic, that iconography is very apt. That is what you feel like in that dasha. And Lord Ganesha is, as we know, the elephant-headed god. He is a, I don't know what the right word to use here is. He shows almost like a replacement for the decapitation of that human body with an elephant head. Almost, I guess you could say, a unique way to solve unsolvable problems. That might not be the best description, but in essence, in my readings, I found that for those people who are going through intense Ketu Dasha, it's really good to propitiate the deities who have different upper bodies. So, for example, Lord Narasimha, the lion-headed deity, or Lord Hanuman, the monkey-faced god, Sri Ganesha. I'm sure there's a plethora. And also for those who are going through a very intense Rahu Dasha, Rahu is the dismembered head. You may consider invoking deities who hold in their hands the decapitated heads of demons. So for example, you may look at the iconography of Durga Devi or Kali Devi. I believe even Kala Bhairava does have one. And although these might be very kind of out there, very scary, very not pleasant to look at, I would invite you to look at these as metaphors. Yes, they're a bit gruesome and they're a bit, uncommon. But it's been my experience that the longer you look, the more you see. So, having said that, I undertook the Ganesh Sadhana, doing the Ganesh Mula Mantra, Om Gam Ganapataye Namah. And I did this with the intention of seeking Lord Ganesha's help. That was simple intention, help. I didn't know what I needed help with. I didn't actually know what help would look like. but that was the clearest intention I could make at that time. So what I did was I wrote this intention, I put it on my puja. I have a little altar cloth, I put it underneath, and you know, looking at a lot of things, there were a lot of opinions that I heard from a lot of people. You have to start it on this day, you must consult an astrologer, you must do this, you know, you must have a certain diet, a certain restriction, all of that. I didn't end up doing that. I realized that if I kept waiting for perfect circumstances, I probably would never do it. Just personally knowing me and my life at the time, I had to just do it. So I believe it was the beginning of Ganesh Chaturthi that was not planned. That just happened to be the way that it started. And I began to do 10 malas a day. So about 1,008 repetitions. I'm a little bit off on that math, but 1,000-ish repetitions a day. And I told myself that I would do that daily. No matter what was going on, I needed to do that. And initially, I had a whole ritual around doing it. I knew that I wouldn't be able to continue it for the entire duration because I didn't actually know how long it would take. And I didn't want to commit to something that I didn't know if I was gonna actually fulfill. So, but in the beginning, it was helpful to have a ritual. So I would, I would offer a light, I would repeat the Ganesha Shirsha, and then I would do my malas and then meditate. And occasionally, sometimes, it was very helpful to, as I completed a mala repetition, to do a shloka. So for example, Vakratunda Mahakaya, just to do that shloka to complete it. And at the end, just sit in silence. And the sitting in silence sometimes was going deep in meditation, and sometimes it was just a minute or two of like a very terse sitting in silence. And as time evolved, that also had to evolve. I actually sometimes had to miss a few days because life took on a different course. And then I had to find new ways of incorporating those malas. So for example, at the time I was walking great distances going to work, and I decided to use that time to repeat this mantra. So in the course of that, I purchased this Sphatic mala, or quartz crystal mala. I'll just hold it up here so we can see it properly. And this became the mala that I used for this mantra. I used to find it very helpful to wear it, which I'll do now as well. And I would just repeat. And I would always average to around, walking back and forth, I was able to do at least 6 to 10, depending on the weather situation. If I was walking in the snow, it took me longer and I was able to do more. And eventually, I kept track with a counter, and I had a little notebook where I made all of these, I did the math and the calculations. So what came of this sadhana? A lot of people expect miraculous things, and they're completely allowed to do so, because miraculous things do happen when we pray, when we make space for the divine, when we put in effort. For me, I really felt myself challenged. Like I shared with my video on the Aham Prema Sadhana, there came a point where I realized that I wasn't just repeating words. I wasn't just repeating a phrase, that this simple mantra, Om Gam Ganapataye Namah, which is 4 words basically, it is intensely powerful, and it can actually sometimes be very uncomfortable to work with that power, to sit with that power. It is such a clarifying, powerful force, and so sometimes I was able to push through, and sometimes I just found myself having to be very quiet and either just be in silent meditation or just sit with the syllable Gam. This is the Bij syllable, the Bij mantra of Lord Ganesha. Gang, actually Gang, we have the Anuswara. In time, I felt things move in my life. Not in the way that I expected, not in ways that were overly, well, I mean, some of them are overly dramatic. But I found myself realizing that as scary and confusing as things were on the outside, as quickly as things were happening, because I was still going through the Ketu Dasha, there was still a lot of karma that I needed to work through, and to an extent I'm still working through. But I do credit the fact that Lord Ganesha was a very powerful presence in my life. And I had never really had an association with Lord Ganesha very much. And in this course, it took about 2 years to do this. And although it sounds very arduous, 2 years, it was, 20 minutes every day, so it wasn't that arduous. It was very much a labor of love. But I really was able to feel the presence of a deity that is incredibly compassionate, incredibly available, incredibly accessible, and deeply, deeply wise. It was almost like getting to know someone on the physical plane. And I think when we, at least from my perspective, Lord Ganesha is almost like everywhere in the world. And it goes from, he's available as a little kind of icon here in stickers, in literally wherever on clothes. He becomes kind of ubiquitous, I guess you could say. And it's kind of easy maybe to see him as an animation or a cartoon or something cute. In this sadhana, I really came to realize that the deities, although they may have very different forms, I mean, the idea of a human being with an elephant head, it's, it arrests logic. How I experienced it in my meditations, in this actual sadhana, the daily sadhana that I was doing, was that all of the things that we put upon God, iconography, mantras, holidays, celebrations, in the Hindu scriptures, they even have likes and dislikes and all of these stories, they are like putting clothes on an invisible man. They give an idea, they give us a way to relate to the deity, but the deity themselves is much beyond our mental concept. And that for me was, I mean, even just now as I talk about it, I feel very enthused and very honored to have undertaken this sadhana, because it has given me a relationship with the deity that is something that I carry with me. To that point, one thing I wanted to share. Eventually I did complete the mantra sadhana, and I was able to tick off and do the math and the accounts that I had done 125,000 repetitions of the mantra. And to seal the ritual, and that's, I don't even know if that's a real thing, but I really enjoy at the end of a significant thing to seal the ritual. And that can either mean giving a donation, it can mean giving a feast for people to kind of celebrate the accomplishment and to share the blessing, really. Knowing that I was flying to Kenya, there's a very beautiful animal orphanage called the David Sheldrick Orphanage, where elephants are fostered, and you can pay to foster an elephant for a year. It's very affordable. It's about $50 a year. You can choose the elephant. You can also donate trees. You can do a lot of things. I'll link that in the description below. And I adopted an elephant for a year to celebrate the accomplishment of the sadhana. His name is Roho. And having done that, so I did the sadhana, I sealed it with, this adoption for a year. I really have had a new relationship with the mantra Om Gam Ganapataye Namah. When I repeat it, and I actually do repeat it very often, I feel that once you have done the mantra sadhana, it's almost like it's something akin to like pottery or refining a gem. After you work on it and you work on it and you work on it, you actually can see a shape forming. It makes it much easier to enter deep meditation. Makes it easier to contact the deity. And so after that, a lot of things in my life changed, and a lot of them weren't very happy. A lot of them were, as I said, surprising circumstances. And the storybook ending, the happy ending that people want is that, oh yeah, I did the mantra sadhana and everything in my life changed and it turned around and it was blissful and very sweet. And I do know people for whom that happens. That wasn't my experience. But this closeness with the mantra is something I wouldn't trade for anything, really. And in my estimation, it has given me a level of protection and help that has seen me through a period of my life that was very sometimes. So the reason I'm sharing this as I share it on the internet is to help people know that if you feel called to do a mantra sadhana, do your research. Yours will look very different from mine, but don't feel that it is beyond you. You don't necessarily have to do it. You don't necessarily not have to do it. But if you feel called to connect with the divine in any way, whether it's repeating the rosary or going on a pilgrimage or all of that, sometimes it's very practical for you, sometimes it's not, but answer the call. Answer the call in whatever way that comes to you. So with that, I would like to thank you, and I would love to hear any questions you have about the mantra sadhana or mantra sadhanas in general. It's been wonderful to connect with you, and Om Gam Ganapataye Namah. Many blessings, many good wishes to all of you everywhere.